So while you're pondering what question, thank you, John. It's a very inspiring and enriching lecture. I think a lot of these things that happen even before, when some of these audience are not even born yet, and it's really good for them to understand the perspective of how community engagement, community design came about. So maybe I can kickstart with a more kind of a practical questions relating to education.
Yes.
For example, you said that it's really interesting. I think it's quite revolutionary and progressive during that time, right? To have interdisciplinary module for a design studio. And I think now people are again starting to talk about having interdisciplinary modules, etc. So I would like to know, for the undergrad module that you mentioned, what year are those students that you say they are from different discipline, and it's only a one semester? Oh no, sorry, it's a 2 semester. Was it a 2 semester or 1 semester program for the undergrad? Yeah, so I assume they don't have design background. So what year are they, and what do they do in the studio if they don't have the design background?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think that's a good question. This course actually began in the 80s at the graduate school. And it was billed as a course that the incoming graduate students must take in the summer before they enter the graduate course. In other words, in the beginning, it was designed for the non-professional applicants to the graduate program, because they don't have a design background or planning background. So for the summer, they spend 10 weeks, kind of like an intensive course on design. So they get a design problem, and they quickly learn the basic ideas about three-dimensional design. In the 90s, we took that course and we expanded it and developed it so that it becomes an independent course from a prerequisite for entering the graduate school. And we opened it up to students in the senior year of college, 4th year of college, to apply for. So we just announced across the campus that we have this course, and anybody in their 4th year interested, they can apply. And in those years, in the 90s and the 2000s, because of the vast interest in this course, we actually tried to develop 2 modules. In other words, one class of 12 wasn't enough to satisfy the need. We had to do two classes of 12. So we had like 24 students. But they come from different disciplines. And it's true, they have not had professional training in planning or design. But many of them were engineers. So engineers, civil engineering, and they are more familiar with the kind of things that we talked about. Space, scale, models, how people use space, etc. Right? But we don't think that's even necessary. We think that anyone, for example, well, I had a student in this class who was a dentist, but because while he was serving in the military on an offshore island, he got involved with the community and helping them as a dentist. And he realized that the problems in the community is not entirely just health. I mean, there are many, many other kinds of problems, and some of which are related to space. And he knew about us, found out about us, and applied to our institute. And he had no training at all. Right? I think the trick here is that you put different disciplines, students from different disciplines together in the same context, same working group. Now, the undergraduate student, it's true that nobody really had too much experience, right, in dealing with space. So for the undergraduate program, we start from even earlier. For example, starting from freehand drawing. Right? Now, freehand drawing, again, is not something so that professional, so to speak. If we ask a student to draw a chair or to draw a room freehand, there are many, many, even if they have not done it since their grade school times, they can produce beautiful drawings. I think some of them produce better drawings than I could do.
John, there are quite a number of questions coming in, so let me read it, one of them to you.
Yeah.
Tommy Young asked, thank you, Professor John. Really inspiring inspiration. One question, how can we nurture and teach community engaged design in ways that do not perpetuate and reproduce capitalist exploitation, especially in the age where architecture is resituating itself within this framework?
Yeah, let me just re-emphasize what I'm trying to say is that in our experience, it's true that many times, very often, because we are trained as professionals within a larger framework of the world, we might call it capitalist, or we might call it liberal. We might give it a name, but we are under the influence of a larger world system. That is very true. And part of that is that we tend to emphasize individual achievement. Okay, and what I have been trying to say is that there is an alternative view, is that we begin from the community and then look at how each person can participate within that community, what kind of role they can play, right? So it's a shift of perspective. And part of that shift requires that we, as a professional, develop this empathy or this empathetic attitude. That is, you can see the point of view of the other person, someone who is not you, but you are that person when you engage him or her in talking about the problem. I think that is really basic. And I think that requires, to a large extent, that we re-educate ourselves to possess and to develop the skills for empathy.
Thank you, John. I think we will take another one question. There are quite a number of questions. For the rest of the questions, Professor John will join us at tomorrow's panel discussion. Because he's in the Pacific time, so it's kind of late for him. He will not stay very long in today's session. So let me pose another question. It's from Dr. Ivawani Alisa. She says, it's very interesting, Professor John. You started presentation with community design based on Western philosophy, tradition of individualism, and go to community wisdom. Do you think that now the community wisdom is still relevant among the young generation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. I think if you spend time with the community, and especially if you just hang out, and if teenagers, you just hang out with teenagers, and you try to listen to what they're saying. I think deep down, really deep down, in our respective cultures, right? And I think right now, present, probably 10, 20, however many different cultures represented here. In our own culture, in each one of our own cultures, there's a way of living. I understand that around the world, young people have their lives and what they want to do and how they want to be, which is all true, right? But I believe as long as the family exists, as long as community, any sense of community still exists. And I believe these are much stronger in the East than it is in the West. Then I think the seeds of that wisdom is there. But we need to release it. We need to unleash the energy of the wisdom that is there. It could be like a seed, and you need to do something to let it sprout, right? And it will come out. Once it comes out, I think young people will see that it is important to them. It's not either or. I think it's true, the world is moving on, right? But again, there's a shift. There's a shift that's coming, and I think this is really an important time for this group, talking about engagement, participation, and talking about how to regenerate our communities.
Thank you, John. I think that is a very interesting point. I think we will pick it up again tomorrow at the panel discussion. So to the audience, please, if you have further questions for John, feel free to type in the chat box. Our helpers will be documenting these questions, and we will find time tomorrow during the panel discussion when Professor John Liu joins us again to discuss more about these points that you all have raised. John, thank you so much. I'm very happy you have agreed to accept our invitation, and it's been a wonderful, thought-provoking presentation. Thank you, John.